This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Cowichan Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in Canada, and I'm excited to be bringing amazing instructors from around the world to share their knowledge about all the ways that we can keep ourselves and our horses well and happy, and about some of the cutting edge techniques, training, and different aspects that are coming into the horse industry and changing it from within. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited about the times that we live in and the shifts that are happening in the horse industry before our eyes. Let's get started. Hi everyone, it's Alexa Linton here, and you're on the Whole Horse Podcast. Today on the podcast, I have a guest who's coming back. She's actually sitting right here on the couch next to me. Welcome, Heather Nelson.
Hello. It's fun to actually get here this time, because remember the first time I was too sick.
Yeah. So today we're not contagious that we know of, and so we're sitting here and chatting. So me and Heather live about 15 minutes apart here in the Cowichan Valley. And today Heather and I are going to be chatting a little bit about her new pony, Sailor. And I'm very excited to hear more about this. So for anybody that hasn't heard Heather's podcast, it's in the first season. Go back, check it out. But Heather, would you give us a little bit of a rundown on who you are, what you're up to? I know it's changed a little bit since you...
It's always evolving.
It's totally evolving.
I'm always evolving, but Liberty is still like a main focus for me. So I love to work horses at Liberty. I love to work horses in a way where they get to show up and have choice and have dialogue with me. I focus a lot on their bodies, how they move, improving movement. I study the academic art of riding. And what else would you say about what I do? I use a lot of positive reinforcement, but I also use a lot of rules. And I would say that kind of, like, if we want to put it in a nutshell, that's my nutshell.
Totally. Heather is also, yes, if I had a trainer, Heather is my trainer.
That's right. I do teach you
very sporadically.
Yeah, very sporadically. I mean, I'm not even really around very much, but even that, you're busy, I'm busy.
Totally. We did have a lesson like last week or something.
That was amazing.
And it was really, really great. And both me and Diva are still kind of chewing on that around rib movement and some interesting things that we've never tried before.
Did you do any homework?
We did.
Yeah?
Yeah. We went out and rode when was it? Not that long ago, and had a great time.
Cool.
She was feeling more about it, which is really cool. So Heather's going to get into maybe a little bit of that, but today we're going to be chatting about Sailor. So tell us about Sailor.
Well, I think it's interesting because with Sailor, I wasn't actually looking for another horse.
When are we ever?
I know. Who is looking for another horse? But it was a little bit of a case of where I was thinking, if I did have another horse, there was kind of this idea in my mind about what I might want to have. I was thinking, like, I didn't want a big horse. I was thinking, like, maybe like a Welsh cobby kind of thing. I like something stocky but small, and then I was thinking I would like something quite young because both my mares are older. I've got a 20-year-old, and I think Extra is going to be like 15 this year, right? And so I was thinking it might be nice to have a young horse sort of just coming along over the years, because in my style of training, we educate horses for a very long time. And I thought, why not have a young one? And then the other thing I was thinking is I really want something that hasn't been educated by anybody else. I really wanted a horse that hadn't really been messed with yet, I guess I want to say. And so then I saw this ad, and the ad was shared from one of my students on Facebook, and it just said, you catch them, you load them, you keep them. And I was like, challenge accepted.
Wasn't he on like an island or something?
Yeah, he was on Pender Island.
Oh my gosh.
And he was 3.5. The ad said he was 14 hands. Turns out that wasn't true. He's actually like a little munchkin.
Yeah.
But
it looks pretty small.
But all of those things fit. He was Welsh. And he looked really stocky in the picture. So I was like, okay, he's a stocky Welsh, 3.5 years old, and said that he had never been touched. Like, I phoned the woman, and he had never been handled in his entire life. She was like, yeah, I've never touched him. She had 53 acres. He was running on it with his dad. And his dad was also, like, not handled at all.
Wow.
And
were they gelded or no?
No, they're stallions. He's never been touched. They couldn't be gelded.
No, that isn't gonna happen.
So yeah, he was a stallion. He was a 3.5-year-old Welsh stallion, crossed, by the way, with standard bred cross Appaloosa. So he's actually got he's a quarter standard bred, a quarter Appaloosa, but half Welsh. The mare was purebred, and he just looks like a Welsh pony. Yeah. That's what he looks like. I'd say he's about 13 hands if I'm lucky. But he is stocky, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. And so yeah, and things really fell into place. That was the other thing that made me think I'm just gonna go do this, because I'm one of those people who really just believes when things happen. And people were just volunteering stuff. Like, they were like, oh, I'll lend you round pen panels, and oh, I'll give you some hay, and oh, I'll donate towards his gelding. And my dad happened to be driving his truck to my house, like, the day that I wanted to go, and he could leave the truck and take the car. And Saskia happened to be bringing her horse trailer, and I could borrow the horse trailer, and she had a day off, and she was going to come with me. It was like everything just fell into place. And I was like, okay, doing it. Gonna go get this pony.
Nice. Okay. So set us up here. I'm totally curious, because I've seen all, like, Heather's posts and things, but I've never really truly heard this story. So you go to Pender Island.
We went to Pender, and I've never been to Pender before.
Oh my gosh, isn't it great?
So it's beautiful. Yeah, and we're heading over there in the horse trailer And so we made friends actually on the ferry right away, because people were like, why are you bringing an empty horse trailer over to Pender Island? So yes, of course we made friends. And then we got there, big piece of land, but the two stallions were, she had brought them down into kind of a smaller, and by smaller, I want to say it's probably 2 to 3 acre pasture.
So still pretty reasonably sized.
Reasonable size. We brought the round pen panels with us, so we set about making like a round pen for them, but leaving one side open. Just put grain into buckets in this round pen, and of course they just walked right in, because that was exciting. They were familiar with having had grain before, right? They knew what it was. So they went in there, closed the door. We closed the doors sort of behind them on the round pen. They went absolutely ballistic when they realized that they were trapped into this enclosure. But we just like stood back and let them settle down until they just started eating again. And then I set about actually clicker training with them.
Oh.
Because the older stallion was okay with taking treats from your hand.
Yeah.
And Sailor, who wasn't Sailor yet at that point, was kind of okay about like cautiously sort of approaching, and then if his dad was doing something, then he'd like maybe take a little bit of a treat off of your hand, but he was quite nervous about it. So I used clicker actually with the stallion, where I was just like reinforcing anything that he did that I liked, and then of course the little guy was like, what's dad doing, why is he getting so many treats? And I started clicker training them to come towards me, and I also started clicker training them when they looked in the trailer. So the trailer was backed up to this round pen, and anytime they looked in the trailer, click, and then treat. And so they got quite comfortable with the idea of looking into the trailer, and quite confident about it, and they were settling down, right? And then we're like, well, I don't need 2 stallions. I really don't. And the one was a full-sized stallion. And I was like, no, I don't need a full-sized 12-year-old stallion who hasn't been handled. My property's not even set up for it. So we let him out, and we kind of like distracted the little guy, and then opened the panel and let the big guy out and closed it up again. That caused a major stir.
Oh, I'm sure.
A really huge stir once they realized they were separated. And I did feel bad about separating them, you know. Yeah. But again, they settled down. You know, stallion realizes, okay, his kid's in there, but whatever. And the little stallion is like, oh, there's still food in here. So he was okay. And what we gradually started doing is taking panels out, but continuing to close it.
Got it.
So making it smaller and smaller. But we had made the trailer a positive place where he could get food out of it. And so we made this quite small, and the trailer was starting to look a little bit more appealing. And then actually the lady that was there on the property, I mean, she was really wanting to get rid of this little guy because he'd been escaping from the land and causing trouble with neighbors.
Ponies. Yeah.
And so she kind of just closed right up on him and then just sort of patted him on the bum, and boom, he jumped in the trailer and we closed the door. We had those panels in the vehicle, and the whole process, like, of get there and drive away, 2 hours. And that was with us taking time to pause, let these guys settle. Like, I do a lot of pauses in my training. So this was not like full on, let's get him in the trailer.
No.
This was like pause, let him think. 2 hours.
That's
and he was
amazing.
so calm. He got in the trailer, no rattling around, no pawing, no sweating, no even calling to his dad, even though he could see him out the window.
Wow.
The dad's going kind of crazy, and again, I felt bad, but you guys don't need to feel bad now. He's got friends again. And he did have sheep.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sailor was just like ready to go. And even when we drove into the ferry, no problem. Totally calm, totally chill about being, and that's why I named him Sailor. He was looking out at the ocean, and he was totally calm. And there's video footage of all this. Actually, he's got like a YouTube thing.
Oh, Sailor's YouTube channel.
Yeah, he kind of has a few videos.
Well, maybe we should include that in the podcast resources. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have like his full-own channel, but he's got some videos on YouTube, and on my Facebook, he's got so many little videos documenting his education from the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so take us through it. So you get back on the ferry. He's so chill.
He's chill. Get to my house, and I'm thinking, okay, this could be difficult, right? Back him up to this one pen that I had, like, surrounded it with panels, because I didn't, my fencing, ponies like mice, they can get through anything.
Oh, I know.
So I was like, I'm going to surround this with panels so that he can't escape. And yeah, at first I thought, I wonder what's going to happen. Is he going to be like all sweated up and like shooting out of this trailer? No. He walks out of the trailer, goes into his house like he lived there his whole life.
Wow.
That was no problem.
Sailor.
Yeah, no, he's got a good mind. Yeah, he really does. But yeah, being touched, no, you know.
Okay, so is that the first challenge? Like, he's in his house, he's happy eating, he's doing his thing.
Yeah,
what happens next?
Initially, I think I spent a little bit of time just, like, hanging out, like, you know, journaling and stuff near his paddock, just getting him used to being around people.
Yeah.
I don't think I did that for very many days, though. We kind of discovered that he would like to, if you were on the other side of the fence, but if you weren't in with him, then scratches were okay.
Yeah.
Like, you could scratch him as long as he felt he was safe, because he was like, oh, she can't get
away.
To me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And certainly kept up the positive reinforcement concept. So my whole goal was, I need to get this little guy gelded. Like, that was my initial
Well, and I can imagine
plan.
his feet had never been done.
No, but his feet were amazing.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, they don't need to be trimmed. They self-trim, so even now, they still don't need to be trimmed. He has incredible feet.
Wow.
He's got more like wild horse feet.
Interesting.
But he was running on like over 50 acres of different terrain.
Right? I was going to ask what the terrain was.
Different footing, different terrain. So just fantastic feet. Absolutely amazing.
That's incredible. Okay, cool. And so we're moving towards gelding. So how long did it take?
Well, and what ended up happening with the like, I guess his whole training plan that I devised for him was based towards the fact that I was going to need to geld him, right?
Yeah.
So, and I was going away to Belgium, not unlike I am now. Right. And so it was like, I'm always going away. So I had this like specific time in my mind that he needed to get gelded by, and it was actually only like a few weeks or something like that. Now, by the end of the few weeks, I actually did already have him leading and going to like another paddock and everything like that I needed to have. And then the idea was the people who were looking after my farm were going to be responsible for its like post-operative care. But the vet was just concerned that she was like, well, I don't know how he really feels about like his tail being touched, and if I have to stabilize him when he's sedated, she said I don't really feel comfortable gelding him. So we could pet him, you could touch his hindquarters by then and everything, but she was like, let's be on the safe side. So we actually left him as a stallion, and then I went away for a month, I think. And then I came back, and I think he was gelded 2 weeks after I got home.
Yeah, so even with something like, let's go solo, dude. Sorry, everybody, Chihuahua wildness happening over here. Yeah, can you just take that somewhere else, dude? Yeah.
He's looking at me expectantly.
He's really being very aggressive with his chicken. It's a stuffed chicken, don't worry. Okay, so take me back. So you, like, leading, for example.
I think we need to go back even
Let's
further
go back
than that.
further. I want to go back and,
need
like,
to
unpack this.
Yeah, we need to go
Because there's
back
obviously skills that he needed to learn and things that you needed.
Yeah, I had
ground
specific
you needed to
goals.
cover before. So tell me about this.
So I guess I was thinking about all these different goals that I needed to accomplish for him to be able to be gelded.
A checklist.
I had in my mind a checklist, right?
Okay.
This little guy needs to be able to be handled confidently all over his body because that's what's going to happen to him when he's in surgery, and especially like even just in the exam for surgery. He's going to need to have a halter on. So the guy's never worn a halter. He's going to need a halter. He's going to need to lead because he needs to be able to lead to a different location because I had him in a fairly small pen off my barn with shelter, and that's not a good enough location to geld in, right? Yeah. So like he's going to have to lead. And he also has to accept weird things because they're going to sedate him, and so he needs needles. Yes. Yeah, he needs to be okay with needles. There's two things that I forgot: stethoscope and a weight tape.
Yeah.
But what we discovered when the vet first came is she was like, yeah, he needs to be okay with the stethoscope, and I was like, okay, just give me a moment, like I can train him to the stethoscope. And the vets were fantastic. That was Caitlin.
Yeah.
And she was just amazing at just being like, okay, like take our time, let's get this to be fine. And he understood the positive reinforcement training. So within seconds, he's thrilled about the stethoscope because he's like, oh yeah, I touched the stethoscope, I get a treat. If I let it touch me, I get a treat. So that took like less than 5 minutes to get him okay with this. And weight tape came out the next time that they were there to geld him. And that also, he was a little like, whoa, what you doing there? But again, same process, like just clicker train him to the weight tape. And then he thought that was fine. Yeah. Right? So that was no problem. But when it came to haltering, it was very important to me that I wasn't trying to halter him. I wanted him to come to me and want to be haltered.
Got it.
And that was the most important drill. So my idea is that my feet don't move when I want to halter him. He has to come to me, and then when he does whatever it is that I've decided is like the thing, like maybe it's touch the halter, or maybe it's put his nose into the circle of the halter, whatever I decide is the plan, then he would get clicked and then he would get rewarded. But I would make no move towards him to do things. So he had to be the one who made these choices about putting the halter on. Yeah. It turned out that putting it, like flipping it behind his ears wasn't a deal.
Yeah, that was hard.
But he accepted the type of halter that you push over the forehead onto the ears.
Okay, so he couldn't do the do-up kind.
Yeah, you don't do the do-up kind.
But you could do it if you had it all clipped. And then
so if I had it all, like the whole head still connected, and then I held it up like a handbag, if you want to picture that, totally. Arm high handbag, and then he would move his head forward under my arm into both the head stall and the circle of the halter, and then just got to the point that he was getting comfortable with it being slipped over his ears. And he understood the process. Like, he understood I was never going to push it. He had to put it on himself. And I think that made him so confident about everything because he realized he was choosing how much he wanted to do. If he didn't want to do it, fine. But then there was no treats for him. And he really loved learning. He still loves learning. And he loved the process. He loved trying to figure out, what does Heather want now? And then, yes, I'm going to get rewarded for it. And she's not going to actually put any pressure on me in those cases. So once I got the halter on leading, well, I'm a Liberty trainer, so I thought the first thing we need is him walking with me at Liberty because I didn't want to have a rope between us, because then what if he freaks out? Now he's got this rope attached. So first step was just Liberty walking with me, stopping with me, going with me. Once he was doing that, I started like fake carrying the rope, like, oh yes, I'm leading you, but I really wasn't. And then once he was just so good at leading and fine with the fact that I'm holding this rope, I just clicked it on him and he was leading around his paddock. And of course, during all this time, I'm practicing getting him used to being touched and things like that. The first time, and it's on video, I think, that I decided to take him out of his paddock and go to the next pen that I wanted him to get gelded on, that was more like the challenging piece. But again, I had built a chute so that if he did get away, he wasn't running my whole 5 acres in my mares.
Totally.
Because let's remember, he's a little stallion running around, and I have mares. And I was like, okay, well, if he tries to get away, I'm never going to try to hold him. I didn't want to get in a fighting situation with him. Instead, Solo, you're really involved in this conversation.
Just to give you all a picture, Solo is basically sitting on Heather's head right now. My little chihuahua.
He's sort of like a
and
parrot. He's like my parrot. He's on my shoulder, and I'm like, okay, and I'm holding him back so that I can talk at the same time. Okay, and so I thought, okay, not hold him. If he wants to go, I'm going to let him go because I'm a Liberty trainer. So if he wanted to just take off, I was going to be fine with it. So I did. I just let him go if he ran, but then I would go get him back and lead him back. And you might think, oh, okay, well, if you let him go, he's going to learn that that's okay, that he's just allowed to run. It's going to turn him into a bolter. No, what it did was teach him that he was okay, that if he needed to go, he could go. And then he never felt trapped.
Yeah.
And it built his confidence. And so leading him actually came about very quickly, that he let on a rope. And I could start taking him places. And we had like a little ritual of like, we go out to the paddock. You hang out there, that's your bigger space, you have some hay out there, and then I'll bring you back.
Nice.
So that's how the leading part went.
Yeah, perfect. That sounds like it would be amazing for all horses to learn to be led like that.
It was actually quite straightforward.
Yeah.
Like, I was a little bit surprised how easy all this came together. Because it was really quite easy. And I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast too, is because I think people would be so leery of
doing it this
way,
of
making this kind of decision, even of adopting a horse who hadn't ever had anything. But he's my first horse I've ever worked with where the beginning was all positive. Right? He hadn't been handled before he was handled by me, and then when he was handled by me, it was all so much his choice. But at the same time, I do not let horses act up. Like, you know, I mean, you're going to try to push me? No, you're not allowed to push me. Space is still a thing for me, and the rules are still a thing as well. So he still has to, you know, mind his manners. But at the same time, he's going to have his own space too. I wasn't going into it, right? I wasn't doing something to him that he wasn't comfortable with. Everything was part of his choice. Like, even the time that you mentioned needle training. There's a video of it on Facebook. I took miscellaneous things like a screwdriver and I did find a syringe and that kind of thing. And again, teach him to touch it, reward him for it, and then next thing you know, I'm stabbing these things into his neck and he's getting rewarded for it.
Like literally stabbing him, or like kind of like metaphorically?
I was using some firm because he's gonna get a needle.
Totally, it's gonna be a little bit like a little bit uncomfortable.
But again, it's at liberty. If he wanted to leave, he was allowed to. Nobody was forcing him to accept me taking a screwdriver and knocking it up against his jugular vein. If he wanted to go, he could. But he's in it to win it. Like, when he's in a class. And I guess that was part of it, was just setting up that, like, ritual of education.
Totally. Like,
he knew how it worked.
So tell me, a couple things. So frequency, were you working?
A lot.
Every day?
How many times a day?
3 times a day.
Initially.
Okay. For how long generally?
Only like 10 minutes. Sometimes maybe even 3 minutes. Right? So he would get like a class probably in the morning, and then a class sometime midday, and then a class before bedtime. My idea was, and this was just initially, I mean, now he only gets like a class 4 times a week, but initially was, I need him to be, ready for the surgery. And I don't have a lot of time to do it, but I also don't believe that horses should have long sessions. I think they learn really fast in short sessions, and I wanted him to get really into the routine of this and just know, okay, there's that crazy lady, she likes to do weird things with me. And he was looking forward to that. Like, even to this day, his little face is always there, and he's always trying to get into class, and I can't even hold him back now. He's like interfering as I try to get my mares, and he's trying to jam his head into the halter even though I'm trying to catch like
Yeah.
my chestnut mare or something, and I'm battling him off because he's like, no, it's my class, it's school time. But setting a routine up like that,
Yeah.
like 3 times
Yeah.
a day, that was positive experience. He's learning, and
He's
he's
fun.
like, this is what school is. This is my learning time. It's fun. I get treats, and he's smart, so
Yeah.
he likes to learn.
Yeah.
Like, I think he was, to me, an ideal world, living on like 50-some acres with, you know, another
Yeah.
stallion and running and playing. But I think for him, he really needs to be engaged. He
Yeah.
loves problem solving and
Yeah.
figuring stuff out. And that was a big part of our education too, was like, I'd have to think of like, okay, he needs some problem solving stuff. Like I
Yeah.
had to set up different problems for him to solve. I had to think about basic skills that he would need in life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really how I keep his education going. Everything that he's learned is kind of like that, where
Cool.
I'm trying to figure out what's he gonna need.
Yeah. So rewind just a little bit, because I know this is a question. If I have it, then there's other people that are going to have it. So when you talked about that sort of balance between like the positive training and then the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you set those rules in terms of?
I have a very extreme version of this, if you want to hear it, okay?
Give it to me.
This is extreme, all right? He's already knows how to put his halter on at this point. So I hold the halter out for him to put it on. He only puts his nose near it, and I do nothing. He backs off, looks at me, gives me the evil eye, turns around, very calmly by the way, turns around and double barrel kicks in my direction because he thinks that I should have given him a treat for the fact that he put his nose in the halter, but that's not good enough for me at this point. Now, double barrel kicking, absolutely unacceptable. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're doing. Not okay. I took that halter and I whacked it across his little pony bottom, and he ran off. He was like, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. And I was like, yeah, I did. And I just stood there, like, with everything else I've done, like, I'm not moving towards you. You can do this yourself. And he does a little head shake, like, oh, I can't believe that. She's so mean to me. He turns back around, walks right up, stuffs his head right in that halter, like, pushes his ears right through the headstall and everything. And he's like, here, I've got this. And I'm like, so,
done with the tantrum, are
yeah,
we?
exactly. Like, tantrum, unacceptable.
Yeah.
And
especially
also,
a dangerous tantrum.
That's a dangerous tantrum. And also, like, whatever it is that I'm asking of you, you don't get to decide when I'm to reward you. Like, you know, rewards are a gift that I bestow upon you. You don't decide that you deserve one now, and you're allowed to attack me as a trainer to tell me it's time.
Yeah.
So that's the most extreme of moments in our training for that. But that would be like, an extreme thing that I could say. But like milder things, I'm still going to use, though it's funny, I have an apple stick whip. And so it's like literally cut off my apple tree, and he's eaten it before. So I'm kind of like, it's negative reinforcement / positive reinforcement.
Right.
But anyway, he's going to get tapped with that. If he's coming to, if I've told him to stop and he's coming towards me, he's going to get shown that there is a boundary between us. I'm going to hold the whip up between us. I'm going to wave it at him, and I'm going to tap him if he keeps coming. So I'm okay with that, right? So I'm not 100% positive reinforcement trainer.
Yeah. And I think that's for some people that comes up where they're like, well, I don't want my horse like walking all over me and being like, you know what I mean? Like, like robbing my pockets for treats and doing all these sorts of things. So
yeah, I have rules. And like Sailor, if you meet him, he's not bugging me for treats at all.
Yeah.
He's waiting patiently because he knows a treat's not coming to him if he's acting like that. Like, you just don't decide when I give you treats. If you're touching me, no treat for you. Yeah. Even if you're up in your energy, no treat for you. You're only going to get a treat when you're calmly standing quietly, and not even just that, you can't even just be there standing but vibrating with energy. Like, you have to just be chill. And so he's very chill about it. Though it's funny because he's always like, he's licking a lot in anticipation of treats. And he's like, So if you're watching these videos, he'll be like
It's always
sort
licking.
of drooling and licking. And he's not licking and chewing to think. He's licking and chewing because he really likes treats. He'll do that over the door of the
Does he have
barn.
favorite treats?
I would just say that he just gets like the Pegasus horse crunch, really. Yeah, it's because I buy it in bulk and it's cheap. But when I was training him to halter, it was carrots.
Yeah,
that was the
that
thing.
Was the ideal treat.
Yeah, if I needed to work on those hard things, and at that time haltering was like the hard thing.
Yeah. Okay,
the carrot.
Nice. So finding that one treat that rules them all.
Yeah, that was the magical thing that made him willing to overcome this fear, right? Because he was fearful of people at that time. But yeah, boundaries are really important to me. I feel that horses train each other with boundaries for sure, but they also have positive things that they do for each other. So I like, and a reward doesn't have to be a treat. Like a reward could be scratches. A reward could be looking at your friends. There's lots of different types. A reward can be, like for Sailor, the fact that, you want to be led to the bigger, or you want to go to that bigger paddock. You want to go have your breakfast, have your hay. Well, you're going to have to put your halter on and lead quietly to get there. That's how we're going to do it. That's a reward.
Nice. Yeah. So let's go back. So he, obviously, the gelding is successful.
The gelding was successful.
I mean, it's always a little bit of a thing when they're 3 and full grown, but...
Yeah. And he was like, it was very difficult to get the needle in. His skin was super tough and things like that, and he had to be sedated a ton. She said she was giving him like as much as she'd give like a warm blood to knock him out. And so that was a little bit difficult, but the actual surgery itself went really well. It was no problem at all.
Great. So we built all these skills up, and then from what I've seen, he has a bunch more skills.
He has a bunch more skills. So I'm always looking to see, and he kind of partly leads these things, and then I partly lead these things based on what I think might be good. I thought, I would like to teach him to drive in his life because he is just a little munchkin. So that's one of the things that I've worked on. So I've like taught him how to have a harness. He's by no means like trained to drive yet. He's learned how to wear a harness. He has learned, I do a lot of long reining with him, and he can actually do some pretty cool long reining already, like that video I shared last week of him doing the lunging figure 8 with a trot.
That was so cool.
Yeah, so he has to be like, I've taught him to have the rein on like the outside of his body or the rein on the inside of his body, and to be able to change directions just off the one rein. So he's learned that. That was evolving from leading the work, right? Because I'm teaching him the leading work and then gradually sliding back in my position to teach him the long reining. We've done work where initially, once he was leading well, then I wanted to lead him around the property. So led him around the property. Then we went out with Nicole's gelding rider, just walking on the roads. Yeah. And then I transitioned him to just walking just with me. And he really likes going for his walks. So getting out in the neighborhood was something he enjoyed. Of course, we do our academic work, right? So we do our long reining, we do our lunging, we do our groundwork position. I've taught him like basic aids of moving his hindquarters over or moving his shoulders over, different suppling work. So he's learned those kind of things. He loved the mounting block parking work. That's his favorite.
What I wanted to chat with you about
as
well. Yeah.
Yeah. So he actually tries to drag me to the mounting block. Doesn't matter what we're doing for long reining. He's like, and to the mounting block. And we're doing Liberty to the mounting block. And it's funny. And that was how I started. It was at Liberty.
Yeah.
Just going over to the mounting block, getting rewarded for the fact that I was over there. And then when he lines himself up, yes, he gets a treat. And I swear, he was like, get on, Heather, like everybody else gets ridden around here. And he's very bossy. Okay, he's like a little soldier about everything. So I was like, and now you will do this. And I'm like, well, we've got other things to work on today. Do we need to do the mounting block? The mounting block! So he's like, it's exactly what he's like. He gets mad if I try to leave the mounting block, right? Like when I try to walk away, he tries to herd me back to the mounting block. Little ears go back until I'm at the mounting block, then the ears are up, and he's like, now you're where you belong. And so when it snowed, I was like, he wants me to ride him, and he's standing here, and he's like pretty much telling me, get on, Heather. So it was like, I've never done this before, but why not? He's not wearing a bridle, he's not wearing a saddle, he's not wearing a halter, there's no rope on him at all. I'm just going to get on his back.
But we have 2 feet of snow, so.
Yeah, if I fall off, I'm going to fall off in the snow. But of course I didn't fall off on the snow because he was like, finally, Heather, you're doing what I told you to do. Mm-hmm. The very first time I put a saddle on him, that's on the video too, he walked over to the mounting block like immediately. He was like...
With the saddle on.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have the girth on yet. And he was like, to the mounting block! Because he's wearing his saddle, and he's like, this is when you get on. This is your big moment. And I was like, I don't get on without a girth, actually. This is like a safety thing. Another thing I use Super Bossy about, after his classes, mm-hmm. he will not go through the barn to the paddock until he's been groomed at his grooming area. So he has a grooming area, and if I try to take him through the barn, he stops, and he just looks at me like, don't you know you're supposed to groom your horse after the work?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, yeah, but I don't really have a lot of time, and you're actually already kind of clean. And he's like, to the grooming area. And I'm like, okay. And then he goes and he stands in his grooming area at Liberty. He goes over there and he just stares at me, and then I walk over there and I give him a quick once over, and then he'll walk through the barn. So the question is, who's training who? You know? But when I think, like, I couldn't touch him before, and now he's like, and you will groom me.
3 times a day.
Yeah, exactly. This is how this relationship's going to be set up. But yeah, he's very funny about things, but because of that, like, it's kind of easy to do stuff with him because he wants these things to be done.
Like he's stoked.
He's very stoked. And so then riding was kind of a natural evolution. I have no plans on doing any major riding with him, certainly at this point. He's only 3.5, and I don't want to do that. But I thought, well, why not? We just walk off. Let's do that. And he already understood basic steering from all the different groundwork mm-hmm. that I do. So he really already knew how to turn before I ever got on him. Like, he understands rein aids. So riding was actually quite a piece of cake, just wandering around, going where I want to go, though. Like, just determining these things. And he's very relaxed. And so I went on my first trail ride. Was it last week or the week before? And how this happened, again, was like, I was like, well, he knows how to go for a walk on a lead. He knows how to have me on his back. He's been ridden, I think, 4 or 5 times total. But we went out with, Saskia was riding my mare. And I was like, I know there's a mounting block out there. Like, there's a big concrete block. And I thought, we got all the pieces. So I just walked him up there. He parked at the block. I got on, and we went down the trail. And he led the ride, by the way.
Yeah.
He was out front.
Did you have a saddle on or bareback?
Yeah, I rode my bareback saddle.
Yeah.
I had my Phil saddle on him. And he was wearing his cavesson. So he's bitless, and he's in his bareback saddle. And off he goes, walking down. And, yeah, Saskia was like, well, maybe I should, like, pass and, like, have Whimsy in front. And Whimsy's like, I'm not going in front. Like, I'm scared. And Sailor's like, I shall be in front. And I will pave the way. And he was totally forward. And, like, ears up, down the trail. Never a sketchy moment. Like, not one. I have not ridden the other mares, like, out in my bareback saddle. I put the saddle on them. But him, I'm like, sure, he's been ridden 4 times, 5 times. Let's go. Trail ride. It is. It was a short ride because there's only a short trail back there. So I let him up there, got on, rode the short trail, got off, and walked him back down the street. I didn't want to do the street with him, which is the other big thing of his training. Like, everything I've done is so, it's like incremental. Yeah. That anything we do, it's never really asking that much because he's
never a sense of like over facing him more.
No, because he's always done like these little teeny things that have like led up to the next thing. So nothing is really major. The only thing that was really crazy major was the surgery, really, because I could only prepare him so far. For
totally.
That.
Yes.
Yeah. But everything. Oh, and trailering, like I was really curious about how he would think about a trailer since that first time. Yeah. But when clients come to my place, I'm like, hey, can I just pop Sailor in your trailer? Yeah. And that's what we do. And he just gets in. And then not this intensive, but the previous intensive in January, and it was just monsooning. The rain was crazy. So Christine and I were like, you know what we should do? We should just pop him in the trailer, take him to the coffee shop. We'll get like a drink and then take him home. And the coffee shop's 10 minutes from my house. So he went for this little 10-minute journey there. We're like there for 10 minutes grabbing our drinks, 10 minutes home. And just, you know, so we always do everything very tiny. And he's happy about it. He's fine.
That's great.
But that's been his whole process.
So tell me, go back to the beginning. Was this like when you planned this all out? Like, were you kind of going like scheduling these things in and looking at, like these are the skills, or was that more, every day or?
I think it's more like every day. Like there were certain things like for surgery that I knew that he needed to know, or things like for riding. I'm like, okay, well he needs these skills. He needs to know this. But it was more like it was evolving over time. And I was never other than surgery, I was never in a hurry for any of the skills to happen. Like, I don't care if I ride him till he's 5. Like, it just doesn't matter to me. But he kind of shows me how quiet he is about a topic or whatever, or what he's ready for. So we go to the next thing. So there's never really been a timeline on anything. And there's never really been, like, I sit down and schedule it out. But I remember even once in a workshop, I taught like how to make a training plan for your horse, and I used Sailor as an example because I was thinking about how when you make a training plan, you need like your ultimate dream, your ultimate goal for your horse. And for him, maybe those ultimate goals have changed, like surgery, that was his ultimate goal. Then an ultimate goal might be, I'd like to get him to the point where I could take him on a trail ride, or I could kind of want to turn him into like a CDI driving pony one day, because I think he would be like super stoked about doing cross-country driving. So then I sort of outlay in my mind what skills is he going to need to do those things, and then I just sort of mix and match through his training sessions. Like sometimes now I'm practicing long reining to prepare him to drive, but another day there's no long reining and we're just working on some suppling work, or I'm leading him out on the road because I need him to get used to going down roads regardless of what I want to teach him. So that's kind of, those ultimate goals have sort of driven the idea. And then I always just break it down in my head, like what is he going to need to know? And I break it down really small, do those small things in whatever session he has, and then just like mix and match. So it's not like I'm thinking, well, I need to turn him into a riding pony, so I'm just getting on his back right now. Well, no, I've taught him voice commands. I taught him how to park at a block over many different sessions, but that block session might have only been 3 minutes in class. Hey, let's wander over to the block. Let's get used to it. Let's have me stand on it. What do you think about that? Oh, that's fine. Okay, well, the next time we come over to the block, I'm going to pet you from the block, or put my leg over you. For like, it was really always broken up, and nothing was ever like a long session in any one topic.
So going back, because I have a 20-year-old mare, you'd never know it. She acts like a
she acts like she's also 4 or 5.
She acts like she's maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
She's turning 20 this year. She seems to be getting more full of it as she gets older.
She's getting more youthful as time goes on.
I don't know what's happening. And she has always been terrified of big trucks on the road. So, and I'm sure there's others that can resonate with horses that hate being on the roads and feel really unsafe about that. And then, of course, riders that also end up feeling quite unsafe about that. So what are some of the...
So you'd need to think about, how do you break that down?
Yeah, how do you break that down?
Yeah.
Like, what's your kind of methodology around that?
Yeah, so when I would look at, like, breaking that down, I would be thinking about, okay, what does she need? Well, okay, we know for sure she needs to have really good basic leading skills, because you're going to, whether it's leading or riding, like, let's say, but I'm thinking we're going to have to start with leading her out. So I'm thinking she's got to have super good basic leading skills. She's got to go when you tell her to. She's got to stop on a dime.
Totally.
She's got to move over when you tell her to. She's got to be able to be relaxed. She's got to be able to stay in position. She has to be able to stay very attentive to what you're doing. So that's going to be schooled in a really safe area first, right? And like, say in Sailor's case, it might have been his pen first, but in her case, she's probably fine to go to the arena and then maybe hit the driveway and be working around those locations, and then taking her for walks up the road and making sure that you're leading and or you're riding, whatever it is you're working on, is bang up accurate when there is no truck, right? Because if we wait until the truck is there and we don't have a brilliant stop or whatever it is, bye.
Yes,
it's like
absolutely.
You can't wait until the stressor's there to school The education has to really be in there, and then you have to start ramping things up. And do we wait until the truck rumbles by? I think probably not. I think maybe we need to have some vehicles that happen to be belonging to your friends, and they might need to rumble past you on, like, the property you already live on and keep your horse on, where you have a little bit of control over what's going on, and you can reward your horse for good behavior in that situation. And I'm reminded of a crazy thing that happened to me in the snow this year, not with Sailor. He wasn't involved. He's my good horse. And so we took the 2 horses out in the snow. We're riding them. We're riding bitless, and we turned around to head for home, and Wim, who's always been an absolute angel for me when we're heading home, like, I stick around a bucklering and she just walks home, took off like a shot, and we're in the forest, and I'm riding extra. Wim's gone.
These 20-year-olds, man?
No, she's 20 years old. She's gone. And I'm like, okay, I'm on this red-headed dragon, who up to this point has been well-behaved, but this is the first ride of the year. It's snowy. And
her mom is gone.
And her mother has just taken off. She can't see her. We're in distance of my house. Like, we can get back there, right?
Yeah.
Like, it took us maybe like half an hour to get to this point from my house. Probably not going to take half an hour to get back at a full gallop, though, right?
Yeah.
So I'm quite concerned about what's going to happen to Whimsy, but I'm also quite concerned what's going to happen to me. So I was like, I don't want to go for a gallop through the snow, and I don't want to go galloping down Barnum Road, which is like a rally road in icy conditions. So I jump off extra, and well, now I have to convince her to stay. And I was like, oh, now I'm standing here in 2 feet of snow next to this fire-breathing dragon that wants to run after her mother. But I've really been educating her to the stop, thanks to Kenneth, who's obsessed with the stop, right? And I could tell her, you're not going anywhere. And we're not pulling on the rope either. I'm just like, bam, I just kind of shook it, and I block her in front with the whip, and I'm like, you are not going to run home. So she's just sort of leaping up and down in place and throwing her head around and having an absolute fit. But she's not taking off.
Wow.
Because she knows she's not supposed to. She's supposed to stay here. Now, I'm not mastering anything about calmness because I really have a dragon on the end of my line. But I can tell you 2 years ago, I couldn't have kept her there. She would have taken off. And it wasn't even like on a tight line. This is a slack line where I'm just being like, you're staying here. And she's just like, ah! But she stayed with me.
Impressive.
You know? And so when I think about that, that's again an example of that. You need to teach that basic skill, which is just stop. And then when things ramp up, because when that truck comes and she wants to go, she needs to have the basic skill down so much that she's not going to go. Yeah. And she needs to know how those rules work, and she needs to know that it's in her favor to do what you're asking of her, which is where I bring in the positive reinforcement side. Like, if that truck is going by and she's being a good girl, I'm going to let her know about it, however that means to her, good girl, pets, grazing, treat, whatever it is, to let her know that that's okay. And then I would start building that up. If she's got a phobia of vehicles, having that friend driving faster or whatever, and then maybe take that to the street, but still do it with your friend, because you now have control instead of some yahoo going 80k down the road and you have no control of what's happening.
For sure.
Until she's so solid that now there is a yahoo going 80k down the road next to you, and you're okay. Yeah,
for sure.
That's how I would train that.
Awesome. I mean, it comes in handy every now and again, because Heather knows that one of our greatest lessons was the one where the bobcat was outside of the arena, and Diva was very excited about it. She was so forward. It was wonderful.
She was, and I remember there was a refrigerator. There was a refrigerator being moved on a dolly.
Going on.
Yeah, that was a crazy day.
She was like really, really moving out. It was quite nice.
But I'm reminded of Sailor too, an example of Sailor, because of course when we first took him out on the road, like when me and Nicole took him out, like she had Ryder and I had him, cars were gonna come. And he'd never seen cars before. And he did try to take off like a shot. Like, he like, woo, I'm going. And I had to be like, no, you're not going. And I had him on the lunge line so that I knew that I'd have extra time. Like, if he did get more to the end of the line. But he didn't get very far away before I'm like, no, you're not running now. And then as soon as he stopped and looked back at me, I clicked him and gave him a treat, right? Okay. And then the next time a car came, he was like, ah! But he only went like less distance, and then as soon as he came back to me, click, and he'd get a treat. And then the next time he was like, this probably isn't actually a concern. And just as the vehicle's going by and he's staying next to me, click and get a treat.
Yeah.
And now, and it was like, I think by the second time I took him out on the road, cars weren't an issue for him. He was just like, yeah, whatever, it's no big deal. Because again, it was just like a positive kind of thing.
Absolutely.
But I did have an incident where he did leave. And you know what scared the bejesus out of him?
Being away from you?
No, a miniature horse.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah.
They are very terrifying.
Yeah, I took him to Emma's house. Yeah, I led him to Emma's house, and he'd always led just a dream up to then, whenever I took him out on the roads. Take him to Emma's house, and her little yearling stallion Reggie, wearing a blue or green blanket, I think it was,
gosh, yes.
comes
The
prancing up to the fence and was like, Sailor was like, what is that? And he goes straight up, turns around, runs off through a pasture that she had. Then Reggie neighs, and he's like, there's a horse back there? So he stops dead in his gallop, turns around, looks, and then I call him, and he does actually start coming back to me, and I was like, oh, thank God, I'm going to get him. We're still on Emma's property, he's coming back. And then a dog from the neighbors comes out, charges him, boom, he's gone, and he ran all the way down Menzies. But that's the only thing that's the only crazy thing that happened. And then I was able to take him out again, and he was totally chill about it. It didn't bother him.
Nice. So it doesn't stick, it sounds like.
No. So sometimes crazy things are going to happen. I don't know as you can totally avoid all crazy things. As long as you're pushing the envelope, I was apparently pushing the envelope by walking to Emma's and seeing
and who knows?
Mini.
It's that whole thing about and I put this in quotations, a bomb-proof horse. There's always situations where things happen. There's gonna be a
bomb that shows up, and I guess his stop obviously wasn't educated well enough, or he should have stopped, right? I probably should have had that a little bit more down. And in the second case, maybe the Mini should have come and visited him at his house instead of me walking him to a stranger's house and a Mini prancing up. So, there's a little bit there too. But.
Well, this is where the humans learn, right? And they eat the little humble pie and go, oops.
And of course, when I got home, he was just grazing on the lawn. It was fine. He's like, what? Heather, I'm home now.
Happy to be home,
all
feeling safe.
Minnie's gone.
Yeah.
It was me who was still in a panic, but he was fine.
So you've told us a little bit about where you want to be going with him. What skills are you working on? This cool figure 8 thing that I really want to know more about, but I don't know if it's easily describable on a podcast.
It's not so easy, but I could try. So he has this thing. Okay, so picture we're lunging. Let's just imagine we're lunging to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say we're just lunging at the trot because he can do that at the trot. So he's lunging around me at the trot going left. But now let's say I want to make a figure 8 off to the right. Mm-hmm. So a change of rein to the outside. So when I want him to break off to the right, I have to direct him off to the right from the lunging. So he has cues to tell him to move his shoulders more off to the right. And I start to get more in a position behind him. So instead of being in his lunging position, I start to slip to the long reining position so I can be behind. I direct him to the right. Yeah. And then as he starts to go to the right, I flip the lunge line over his back. So now it's on the outside of his neck, still on the left side of his neck and head, but it's over his back on the right side, and I now direct him to continue going right, from my body language, inviting him, because he knows how to free lunge around me at liberty. So I invite him with my hand, and now he's lunging around me to the right, but with the lunge line on his left side. Mm-hmm. And then when I want to make a change again, I again direct him to the left, and I slip in behind his hindquarters in long reining position. He starts going to the left, and I step to his left, and I direct him to the left, and I go back to lunging on the left side.
We'll totally post a video of it because it's really cool to watch. I've never seen it before, so yeah, I was like, woo.
Yeah, and
but
I was
lots of
just
little
wanted to
cool,
see if I could do it.
Lots of little cool skill building, right?
Yeah.
Just okay, so you got to move their shoulder, and you got to be able to long line, and
I would say there's a lot of different skills broken down into that. So there's obviously lunging. He needs to be able to lunge. Mm-hmm. But I think free lunging was also a little bit critical because he really responded to hand signals, so he understands that. Then the long lining, he needs to know how to move his shoulders if I'm close to his head and next to him, but then he needs to know how to move his shoulders if I'm behind him. Mm-hmm. He needs to be okay with the line being on any side of his body. He needs to be okay with the fact that I'm kind of tossing the line up and over as he goes on to the new circle. he needs to be okay with pace regulation
Yeah.
because he can't get too quick in this, and he also can't stall out on me because I was trying to keep the rhythm the same. So those types of skills he needed to be able to pull off the figure eight.
Mm-hmm.
So the figure eight was fancy, but it's made up of a whole bunch of basic skills that he needed to learn and to build on. And that started out with, all those basic things, and then doing that at the walk too, like just changing rein at the walk, and it was something he was capable of doing quite early. I feel like I made a video that was similar to that at the walk in a really rainy situation last winter sometime.
Okay.
Yeah, and then this was the first time I did it at the trot, and it was fun. But complicated things are always made
of simple things.
Bunch of simple things.
Yeah. Awesome.
Solo agrees.
Or something like just bit him or something. You just jumped up. All right. Okay. Here we are at 54 minutes, man. And we were wondering how we were going to fill the time.
Still so many things to answer about what he's learning.
So
it's good.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up for tonight. But that was very cool to finally hear the whole story and share that with everybody, all of you out there listening in. And so give us some sense of how to track you down. I know there's a few different ways.
There's a few different ways. I think that these days the best way to just keep track of me is actually just on my own personal Facebook. That's where I really post the most, for example, about Sailor and about events that are coming up. Awesome. So just under the Heather Nelson. Feel free to friend me. I like friends. I'm fine with friends.
She's a really good friend.
I'm good with friends. That doesn't bother me. I don't do as much actually on my business page.
Yeah.
It's really just more my personal page. And I do have a website. It's heathernelsonlibertytraining.com.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been fixing it up in a couple of years because I really just do stuff on Facebook. I have Instagram.
Okay.
HN Liberty. Those are probably the ways.
Perfect. And what we'll do is post some of the links to the videos on the wholehorse.ca page with the podcast recording. So if you're listening in somewhere else, you can head over to www.wholehorse.ca and you can find links to videos and resources and links and all of those sorts of things to get in touch with Heather and watch what she's up to with Sailor. And any other resources that you want to share before we finish up? I know you've probably shared some in the past, but anything that you've come across that you're really loving right now?
Well, I love to study the academic art of riding, and it's definitely part of what I do with Sailor. Because, of course, I'm educating him in it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a lot to do with, say, his initial education, where we had to teach him how to just get a halter on and stuff like that. But that's a big resource because, my instructor is Kenneth Spence-Wayvelt, who I think was doing a podcast recently here.
Yeah, he would be the last podcast. So,
yeah. And I'm off to Europe next week, like in 2 days, and I'll go work with him, and I'll be working with other trainers over there too.
Awesome. And Heather puts on a bunch of clinics
in
the summer, so check those out.
And the intensives are great too, where people are now bringing their own horse for just 2 to 4 days to work with me because they get 2 lessons a day. So I'm doing that kind of thing. And other resources, I think if you're interested in positive reinforcement training, then there's some interesting books out there and some interesting stuff on the web about clicker training that I got into. I think I read some of books by Karen Pryor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karen Pryor. Cool.
Yeah.
So some other places we can head to and check it out. It sounds like the combination of things is working very well. So
yes. It's working well for Sailor.
Totally.
And I'm just of course now I can't help but be like, is it just his personality is so awesome, or is it his education? Do I need to get another horse now to see? But I'm not going to. Got 3. I'm good.
Tapped out. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness.
But if other people want to bring their horses to me so I can see how it goes.
Heather wants to experiment.
I want to experiment. I want to see if Sailor is just this special super pony or if this educating him thing was just the ticket.
Yeah, nice. Okay, everybody, you've heard it here. Bring your ponies.
Yes, bring your ponies. I love them. They're so cute.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Heather. This has been very fun. We're just chilling on the couch. It's pretty great.
Yes, this is more fun than last time where we called in. So
yeah,
thanks for having me over.
Oh,
this is good.
So welcome. Thanks everybody for tuning in, taking the time out. Hopefully you got something cool done, like mucking out your paddock, or hopefully you weren't riding your horse while listening to this, but it happens. So yeah, really want to honor that it's, we are all very busy, and so glad that you made the time for this. Hope you learned something new, and we'll be back soon with more fun podcasts. All right, everybody, have an awesome day. Bye for now.
Bye.